Now I am going to discuss the Age of Johnson. The later half of the 18th century is called Age of Johnson because Dr. Samuel Johnson was the prominent writer of this age. He died in year 1784, and from that time we see the change or shift in the interest of people. They started to take interest in romanticism rather than classicism. Uh, it's also a fact that romantic age started with the year 1798 with the publication of lyrical ballads, but even before that time, people started to take interest in romantic strain or in romanticism. So, and this thing was especially prominent or noticeable in the field of poetry, and people uh, started to think that simple imaginative language should be used in poetry, and most of the poets belonging to this period may be termed as the precursor of the romantic revival. So that's why this age is also called the age of experiment or the age of change or the age of transition. So here we see the rising interest in the romanticism. Next slide. Now I'm going to discuss the poets of the age of Johnson. As I have mentioned before, the age of Johnson in English poetry is an age of transition and experimentation, and it ultimately led to romantic revival. And this is the period that is having the coexistence of two tendencies, means romanticism and classicism. In the period of Dr. Johnson, profound changes were taking place in the spirit of English society. Actually, the people of the age wanted something more natural and spontaneous in thought and language. They were tired of the artificial language and artificial style of classicism. People were quickened into the fresh activity by the renaissance of feelings, and it is the fact that the people of the age were taking more interest in romanticism. So, uh, this age is called the age of transition and age of experimentation. Now I'm going to discuss Johnson's important works. He has written two chief poems, two important poems. First is London, and the next is The Vanity of Human Wishes. Here in these two poems, he sticks to the trends of classicism because these poems are having some lesson in them. He is very careful about the form of the poem, and the style is rhetorical, means he wanted to please or persuade other people by using his language effectively. So style is rhetorical, and in these poems he uses closed couplet. Now I'm going to discuss the poetry written by Oliver Goldsmith, and he is another important poet of the age of Dr. Samuel Johnson. And he is an Irish novelist, playwright, and poet who is best known for his novel The Vicar of Wakefield. And he is rightly called the child of classicism, means he followed the standards or rules and regulations of classicism in his poetry. His important poems are The Traveller and The Deserted Village. According to him, uh, the standards of classicism reached their perfection during the Augustan age, and all poets must follow these standards in their works. Now I am going to differentiate the two tendencies, means classicism and romanticism. The main characteristics of classical poetry were it was mainly the product of intelligence and was specially deficient in emotions and imagination. Actually, in classicism, the main concern was intellect, and they didn't take any interest in emotions, feelings, and imagination. And that work was chiefly, or you can say that poetry was chiefly the town poetry, means it was about cities or towns, and it had no love for past, for you can say supernatural elements or metaphysics. or any hidden or mysterious things. And its style was very formal, artificial, and writers used closed couplet. And they didn't believe in experimentation in different metrical forms, and they just used closed couplet. And it was fundamentally didactic, means their purpose was just to give some moral lesson, and it insisted on the writer to follow the prescribed rules and regulations. So they just uh, means they just followed different standards and rules given by classicism. But romantic poetry, or you can say romanticism, was just opposite to all these trends. For example, its chief characteristics were it gave much importance to emotions, feelings, and imagination, and it was more interested in nature, or you can say country life or village life, because romantic poets took much interest in beauty, in you can say in scenery, in flowers, in you can say and different, you can say the beauties of life. uh, and it revived the romantic spirit, means they just love mysterious things, supernatural elements, past, etc. And here in romanticism, the form was not important, and they just believed in experimentation. They did not use closed couplet. And its object was not didactic, means they didn't write, mean romantic writers or romantic poets didn't write for any moral lesson. Rather they wanted to express their emotions and feelings, or their love for different things. It believed in the liberty of poet to choose the theme and manner of his writing, means uh, they uh, they didn't you can say stick themselves to different, you can say forms of couplet, or you can say different themes. They were just free to choose their themes and form. In this age, some poets took great interest in romanticism, and these poets may be described as the forerunners of romanticism. So they are James Thomas, Thomas Gray, William Collins, James Macpherson, William Blake, Robert Burns, William Cowper, and George Crabbe. Now I am going to discuss the prose of the age of Johnson. In the age of Johnson, the traditions, or the you can say concepts set up by prose writers of the 18th century were still employed or used. The writers like Addison, Steele, and Swift uh, set up these traditions in 18th century, and these traditions were still used in the age of Johnson. In the field of prose, the writers of this age favored a literary style that was based on the principles of logic, exactness, clarity, and lucidity. Lucidity means a very, you can say, clear language that is easily understandable, and it was opposed to what was called petty, unimportant, and inaccurate. Means the prose writers of this age were in the favor of the traditions of classicism in prose, and they were just opposed to romantic strength in prose. And the great prose writers of this age were Johnson, Burke, and Gibbon. Now I am going to tell about Samuel Johnson, who is often referred to as Dr. Johnson, and he was an English writer who made lasting contributions to English literature as a poet, playwright. Playwright means dramatist, essayist, moralist, literary critic, biographer, and editor. And he was in the favor of poor people, and he was very helpful. So he was a man of great character. At the same time, he was a man of intellect, and because of all these qualities, he was liked by many people of that time, and many literary people used to gather around him in his poorhouse, and he was looked by them as their leader. So Samuel Johnson was a man of robust, you can say, physique, and at the same time he was having very good character. He was very intellectual, and he favored poor people, and people looked upon him as their leader. Now I'm going to discuss Johnson's best known works, and they are Dictionary and Lives of Poets. And he contributed a number of articles in periodicals as well. And the names of these periodicals are The Rambler, The Idler, and Rashilas. Here in these writings, his style is very tedious, boring, and very wordy. So this work is not very attractive in this sense. Now I am going to discuss another prose writer of the age, and his name is Edmund Burke. Edmund Burke was an Irish statesman and philosopher. He was born in Dublin, and he served as a member of parliament between 1766 and 1794. And he was a public speaker or speech maker, and he was very knowledgeable person, as he was having great knowledge about politics and philosophy in that period. And his chief contributions are actually his speeches, um, and the earliest of them were thoughts on the present discontent. Edmund Burke actually served in Parliament, and he made two very famous speeches. One is on American taxation, 1774, and on conciliation with America, in which he shows himself to be a great political thinker. The greatest speeches of Burke were, however, delivered in connection with French Revolution, which were published as the Reflections on the French Revolution. Now I'm going to discuss another prose writer of the age, and he is Edward Gibbon. And he was the first historian of England who wrote according to the rules and regulations of literature. And his greatest work is The Decline and the Fall of the Roman Empire. And this writing shows his knowledge and his research in the, you can say, in the particular field of history. Now I'm going to discuss the 18th century novel. Actually, a novel is a story or a tale presenting a picture of real life. The idea we have of novel comes from the 18th century, and before that time, there were plenty of forms of prose fiction that did not present a picture of real life. So those forms cannot be called novel. So a novel is a story presenting a picture of real life. Um, Here, the chief literary contribution of 18th century was the discovery of modern novel, which is the most popular form of literature today. And the elementary work, or the, you can say, uh, means in the very beginning, the work on novel was done by two authors. They are Bunyan and Daniel Defoe. It was Defoe who was the real creator of autobiographical fiction as a work of art. Here, autobiographical means a life history of a person told by himself, and fiction is a literary work that is based on imagination and not on fact, means anything that is false. You can say, or you can say, fabrication means a thing that is not based on fact. So Daniel Defoe was the creator of autobiographical fiction, and he was the first to create psychological interest in the character of narrator. Means he introduced psychological element in the writings. Moreover, he was the first to introduce realism. uh, Realism means, you can say, writing that is having reality of life in it, that is near reality, you can say. For example, the reader is told about Crusoe's island as gradually as Crusoe himself comes to know of it. Besides introducing the elements of autobiography and realism, Defoe also fixed the peculiar form of historical novel, the narrative of imaginary person in a historical setting as in his memories. He was the creator of autobiography. Autobiography means the history, or you can say the life history of a person that is told by himself. Means if you are writing uh, the life history of some other person, it is called biography. And if that story is written by uh, that very person, then that story or that biography is called autobiography. And he was the creator of fiction. I have told you earlier, fiction means something based on imagination. And other important thing about Defoe was that he introduced psychological strain in novel. Then he introduced an other important thing, that is realism. Means his, you can say, his writings were having the reality of life. So these were the, you can say, different characteristics of Daniel Defoe's writing. Novels written before the publication of Pamela in 1740 uh, cannot be called novels in the true sense of the word. A true novel is a story that projects or presents life realistically. It expresses the emotions and feelings of characters, and its interest doesn't lie in the events or different adventures of character, but in its realism and simplicity. During the 18th century, a number of English novelists like Goldsmith, Richardson, Fielding, Smollett, and Sterne um, wrote different novels, and in these novels, they mirrored life realistically. Daniel Defoe can be called the father of English novel, but his novels cannot be placed in the category of novel, uh, you can say, according to the modern definition of the novel. Richardson's Pamela or Virtue Rewarded can be called the first modern novel. Uh, this novel tells about different problems, difficulties, trials, or tribulations, and the finally happy marriage of a young girl, and it is written in the form of letters. It is very emotional and sentimental, and at the same time boring and tedious, which is because it is having uh, different wordy details, but its quality lies in the fact that it is the first book that gives a realistic picture of a young girl. It tells about the psyche of a young girl, so we can say that this novel is the first modern novel. In his novel, Richardson discusses human psyche and human nature. His second novel is Clarissa, or The History of a Young Lady, and it is written in the form of letters, and it is as emotional and sentimental as Pamela. Uh, and here in this novel, he tells about a real woman and her real doubts, difficulties, morals, griefs, etc. Then in the next novel, Sir Charles Grandison, which is written in the form of letters, here Richardson uh, told the story of an aristocratic man, and who is having different virtues and manners. In these novels, Richardson's purpose was just didactic, means purpose was moral, but he has something more. Actually, he has worked on the inner working of human mind. Means he tells about the working of human mind. He tells about the psyche of humans. So these novels are having a realistic approach. Means he doesn't discuss different imaginary characters. Rather, he takes his characters from the real life. We can say that in his novels he shows human heart. These novels can be called modern novels because they are painting or they are presenting the real picture of human psychology. Now I am going to discuss Henry Fielding. Actually, he was an English playwright and dramatist who was known for his satire and humor. And he, with Samuel Richardson, is considered to be a founder of English novel. And among his major novels are Joseph Andrews and Tom Jones. Here in Joseph Andrews, he just criticizes and makes fun of sentimentality and you can say artificial goodness of Richardson's heroine Pamela. Fielding's next novel is Jonathan Wild. It's a typical picaresque novel and it tells about the story of a rogue. Picaresque novel is a type of novel that tells about a rogue or you can say rascal or tells about the adventures of that rascal. Then there is an other novel, Tom Jones, or you can say the history of Tom Jones, a founding, and it is you can say epic like qualities means it is you can say long narrative writing, and that writing or that novel is having dramatic qualities as well. It consists of a large number of subplots or you can say a large number of adventures which are woven together skillfully, means its plot is very complicated but it is formed or it is constructed skillfully. Now I'm going to discuss Fielding's another novel, that is Amelia, and it is written in 1751. Actually, it is the story of a good wife and a bad husband, and it is written in a milder tone. Means here tone is not satiric. Actually, here Fielding has become very soft-hearted, and he has understood the you can say ups and downs of human life, and here instead of showing lack of emotional involvement, um, he is you can say he is very concerned with people, and this you can say novel is written in a very beautiful and simple narrative. Smollett. Smollett's best known novels are Roderick Random, in which hero it tells a series of wild and exciting risks. Uh, Peregrine Pickle, in which are related the worst experiences at sea, and Humphrey Clinker, in which is related the journey of Welsh family through England and Scotland. In all these novels, we find different comic situations that make us smile. Now I am going to discuss another novelist of this period, and that is Lawrence Sterne. Uh, in his writing style, he was just opposite to that of Smollett, because in Smollett's writing we find trials, tribulations, problems, complications, horrors, and difficult situations in life. But in Sterne, we find different emotional situations or tears, and his best known novels are Tristram Shandy and A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy. Now I'm going to discuss another great novelist of this period, and he is Oliver Goldsmith. He wrote only one novel, that is Vicar of Wakefield, and this is very popular in English literature because in this novel he has presented domestic life with some romantic touches. Here, romantic means something beyond reality, and it is free from any vulgarity or grossness which we find in the novels of Smollett and Sterne. Means they are very simple, they are very you can say beautiful. In this novel, uh, we we see that he glorifies uh, you can say the character and different virtues. Actually, it is the story of Dr. Primrose, a simple English clergyman or a churchman who is having many bad lucks or difficulties in his life, but ultimately he comes out victorious because he is having strong faith in God. Now I'm going to discuss the 18th century drama. Actually, this period did not produce any drama of high rank or high order. Actually, we see the gradual or slow decline in this field, and one of the reasons of this decline during this period was the Licensing Act of 1737, which just uh, you can say restrict the freedom of expression of dramatists. Or so the result was that the writers of this age just stopped writing in the field of drama, and they turned their attention to novel. Richard Brinsley Sheridan is the popular dramatist of this period, and he has written two comedies. They are The Rivals, that is written in 1775, and The School for Scandal, 1777. And here in these novels, we see the witty expressions, or we can say the brilliance of expression of Restoration comedy. So, Sheridan revived the qualities of Restoration comedy in his work.